Three, two, one. Welcome everybody. It's me, Daniel, aka Cryptomessiah. I've got a special guest. I've known this guy for a long time, Tor Bar. He is the founder of the Secret Foundation.
Secret Foundation, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you got the kitty in the background. What's his or her name?
This is Toki. You might get lucky and see the other one too.
You got two of them.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, if the other one walks in, that one, her name is Bullet. This one is Toki. They're both named after whiskey.
Oh, nice. Are they? How old are they?
They are brother and sister. They're about 3.5 now.
Wow, so we have 220 people in here watching live right now. That's pretty impressive. Now, guys, just to give you a little preface, Secret Network used to be Enigma. You guys have heard me talk about Enigma plenty of times in the past. We have Tor here to discuss kind of the future of Enigma, which is Secret. Enigma is Secret now. It's been swapped. I believe the swap is still ongoing, isn't it? If people have Enigma tokens, they're still able to swap over to that secret mainnet. You guys have a portal on your website or something like that. And if you had them on Binance, did Binance auto swap those?
Yeah, at the beginning of October, Binance supported the community swap. So any ENG that were on Binance are now SCRT. The swap is still open. There's a community created tool at secretswap.io that's being used. So there's been now, I think, 60 million coins swapped.
Wow, that's impressive.
Which is a lot as of today. Yeah, it's extremely. But the story behind the swap is equally impressive. But we won't front load it. I can get into it if it's interesting.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, it's super cool though.
For those of you guys that don't know, Tor is a super smart guy. He's been in crypto a really long time. So we're not going to actually start out talking about Secret Network, although that's what we're eventually going to get into. We're going to talk about crypto in general because just look at what's happening right now. This is super exciting. The excitement's like in the air. You can just feel it. It's almost like you walk in a room and there's static electricity. Your hairs are standing up, and it's just like, I don't know about you, Tor, but I've got this like anxiety. Like I know what's coming, or at least I feel like I know what's coming. And I've got this anxiety just like waiting, because it's like, imagine, having like $100 or whatever. And just knowing at some point in the future, if you just manage to not spend that $100, like that $100 is going to be worth like $15,000 or $1,500 or whatever. It's a little surreal to think about, when you see Bitcoin at $20,000 again. And one of the things people keep talking about, and I know this is a little ironic to say, but people keep talking about how no one's talking about this bull run. Why do you think that is?
It's kind of weird. You're describing the whole hurry up and wait, right? And for those of us who are around during like multiple bear markets and have kept building the stuff that we're particularly passionate about, like this is nothing new. It's always felt a little bit like hurry up and wait. The reason the anxiety is here is because in the bear cycles, the flow of information is slower. The feedback cycles are not as tight. And in a bull market, when there's like, it's not so much that there's new retail interest. It's just like everybody is at attention. Everybody's so hyped up on what's happening that the feedback cycles are just super, super tight. There's more information, more days. It's being reprocessed faster. Like this is kind of how DeFi was feeling in the summer, like when it was really hot. Like the feedback cycles were so tight. There was a new platform. There was another new platform. It had a higher APY. It got hacked. When things happen that fast, like you're going to have anxiety no matter what the numbers are kind of telling you. So hurry up and wait is nothing new. It's just that this time it feels like the things that we've been hurrying up and waiting for are here. Like they're right in front of us. It's just a question of like, what is it going to take to break out of the audiences that we've already built and take it into the mainstream? And in 2017, it felt like what took things into the mainstream was ICOs. And that was an opportunity. But that had all kinds of stuff wrapped up in it that we're not seeing now. Now the product itself is the platform. And before it was weird. The product was the token, and then you traded the token, but the token represented something else. And like I was joking all the time in 2017, like there was legitimate tech being launched in 2017. A ton of those projects are what you see now, like Chainlink, Aave, Synthetics, like all these things that were launched like around then. So there was tons of legitimate stuff. And then there was like energy drink ICOs. You're not going to see that again this time. It's going to be like, what is the platform being used for? What's the key thing it's bringing to the ecosystem? But it also means those potential rewards are exponentially higher, like you're saying, than they were the last time around.
I think so too.
Crazy.
You know, it's the craziest thing to me, and I guess the biggest paradigm shift, at least that I'm sensing, and I think you echoed a little bit of what I'm about to say and what you said. But it's not so much that, you know, in 2017, the whole hype, you know, what actually pumped, and of course there's still those FOMO-nomics that exist today, but what pumped were promises. You know, hey, we've got this on a test net, we've got a $3 billion addressable market, you know, we're going to go after them, we're going to get them, we're going to bring them in, they're going to use our platform. Whereas now it seems that the new paradigm is TVL, or total value locked. Are people actually using the protocol? Do you have a live product with users? And if so, how much is that worth? Now, of course, you know, there's always speculators and things that are yet to be launched. You know, I'm invested in several, especially in the insurance sector, which I think is going to be really big in crypto with all the hacking and rugs. I mean, when you take something like Solidity and break it down, I mean, there's so many exploits that people haven't even thought of yet. It really is extremely dangerous. You know, people refer to it as the dark forest. And it's, I mean, there's these galaxy brain guys, and it's kind of funny that the audit, which used to be this security net, you know, the security blanket, you know, people were like, oh, I bought this project, or I'm not going to buy it till, you know, that audit report comes out. We're seeing now that these audit reports don't really matter. And it's not necessarily a knock on the firms that are actually carrying out these audits. That doesn't mean the firms suck. It just means that, you know, there's so many different pathways to exploitation through all of these Lego pieces that have been put together. And sometimes the exploit itself isn't in necessarily the core contract of a protocol. The exploit is, you know, somebody that can find like little holes in the way that this protocol interacts with this other protocol that it uses that interacts with this other protocol. And, you know, we've seen that play out several times through these flash loan exploits and attacks, which are just mind-blowing. You know, somebody can borrow $15 million with no collateral and return it in the same block, and it's just cool. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and when used properly, you know, it can do amazing things. It can assure efficiency on all of these on-chain markets and things like that. You know, but at the same time, it's really wicked. Now we've seen, of course, Ethereum going fucking crazy. You know, the original vision of Enigma was for privacy on Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ethereum. Well, if we want to go back even further in time, the original vision of Enigma was actually privacy on Bitcoin, because the original Enigma white papers were written at MIT in 2015. And at the time, there wasn't really much Ethereum to speak of. So if you go back and you look at those first white papers that were written by Guy Ziskind, who's still the Enigma CEO, they're talking about decentralizing privacy, decentralized computation platforms with guaranteed privacy, and they're talking about adding to Bitcoin. You know, but this was the white paper. Once it actually came time to put some of these things into practice in production, the first thing that Enigma was focusing on was Ethereum. And as we'll talk about, like the vision has evolved even further with Secret Network, but it was clear even by 2017 that Ethereum was where all of the magic was going to happen for smart contracts and where composability was heading. And that's where we knew the need for privacy would be.
So just out of curiosity, you know, and I know a lot of people kind of have this mentality right now that, you know, if it's not, and especially as somebody that trades a lot myself, you know, when I'm looking at things to invest in, you know, a big concern for me is, you know, is it convenient to invest? And what that means is that, you know, I've got Ethereum in my wallet. I can go to Uniswap. It's liquid. You know, I can hit it. And that's kind of been the experience that people have sought after. Now, when you look at the Ethereum network and you look at the primary cause of all of the congestion, ironically, that is Uniswap. It represents pretty much the majority of traffic on the Ethereum network. which is great. You know, it's fantastic to see a DApp, you know, get that kind of traction and really push the boundaries of what we even expected, you know, from any kind of DApp. When we're looking back 2 years ago, I mean, DApps didn't do things like this, and if they did, they didn't have the user base, the confidence behind them, et cetera, to carry it out. Now, a lot of people believe in an interoperable future. I'm one of those. My personal belief is that, you know, we're going to have Ethereum as this kind of central hub, and then you're going to have spokes out that go to, you know, through bridges and other technologies that go to other chains that have differend capabilities than Ethereum. Now, I think that the move from, you know, Ethereum to Cosmos backend essentially was something that was a little controversial among the community. I understand why it was done. You know, Ethereum's capabilities were limited. You can do so much more on Cosmos. It's faster. But how is Secret actually going to tap into this Ethereum market, which is so strong, gives, you know, people this convenience factor that I was talking about, and what is it going to do for not just Ethereum, but hopefully, you know, for all the other chains down the road?
Okay, all of those are amazing questions. So I have to construct my answer carefully so I
Sure,
make sure
sure.
I answer all of them. But so yes, the biggest difference between what Secret is today and what some of the visions were along the life cycle of like what has now become Secret Network, before, when it was looking at more at being a layer 2 for Ethereum kind of solution that was being built, we were going to rely on Ethereum for consensus. But the vision of Secret Network is to be an independent layer 1 that has its own consensus. And that's where, you know, Tendermint and Cosmos comes in. So Secret Network is its own blockchain. It has its own coin. That coin is used for staking. It's also used for governance. It's also used for fees. It's also used for computational fees. So the coin has its own utility outside of the Ethereum universe. But, you know, then you're begging the question, right? Like, what relevance then does that have to Ethereum? Are we in the position of saying you need to leave Ethereum to come to the secret verse to have any of the benefits of our product? And that wouldn't make any sense. The vision of Secret Network was to bring privacy by design to every public blockchain. And the reason we thought that was a strong vision is because every public blockchain has the same problem. Ethereum has a very unique advantage, but it doesn't have a very unique problem. Every public blockchain suffers from a lack of privacy. Ethereum is not unique in that regard. And that's why it's not a killer for Ethereum. The fact that it has like no privacy protections like native to the chain isn't a killer for Ethereum because every blockchain is bad at privacy by design. So instead, Ethereum gets to lean on its strengths, which are its network effects and its developer community and the DApp ecosystem that's emerged on top of it, and the usage of Uniswap, like everything that you're mentioning, which are these like massive economies of scale, massive advantages. Rather than try to like port that, you have to create something that is complementary. So when you're describing ETH as this hub, like I see it the same way. It's a massive hub for developer activity, for innovation, especially in the DeFi ecosystem. Secret Network is its own kind of hub, but it's a privacy hub. So instead of trying to say we're a better blockchain, like we're slightly faster, we're the only blockchain that has privacy by default. Everybody else has public by default, but smart contracts on Secret Network are private by default. Because we know that's the value that we're offering with the network, we can provide it effectively as a service to Ethereum or applications that want to integrate with Secret Network. Like we recently announced that we're working with Ocean on integrations for their data tokens and their data token marketplaces. And that's just like one of the key use cases you can have as an ERC20 looking to take advantage of Secret Network solutions. But the best part about Secret Network is if you wanted to be in the Cosmos ecosystem and try to take advantage of Secret Network solutions, you could. And if you wanted to build an application completely native to Secret Network, you could. The only reason any of this makes any sense is because we do something different from every other blockchain. If we were just trying to fork Ethereum and create another hub, and we were just like Schmethereum, it would never, ever, ever, ever work. And I would never, ever want to do it. So that's really why we're differentiated, but it's also why we're not separate from Ethereum. It's very much still, even though the architecture is different, we're no longer using Ethereum for consensus. Ethereum is still essential to the vision of what we're trying to build, which is just a more secure and scalable, decentralized financial ecosystem that can also protect data and protect users by default.
So, I mean, just and it looks like we got Bullet that just came into the room.
Yes,
Hey, Katie. That's a big kitty. That's
This
like
one's
my
a chunk.
cat. Yeah, mine's a chunk as well. Again, when she sits down, her belly hangs in between her legs.
Oh yeah,
It's a
she's
little
sweet.
ridiculous. Yeah, they're all sweet. I love cats.
Uh,
So just out of curiosity, you keep talking about private smart contracts and things like that.
mhm.
Why does that even matter for one? Are there things that private smart contracts are going to enable, that maybe people aren't really grasping yet?
Yeah.
It's certainly something that's new. Number two, how does that actually bring privacy to Ethereum in any way at all? And I know you said the aim here is to bring it to every blockchain. There's other products on Ethereum that are just starting to emerge that tout privacy features for Ethereum that have gotten a certain degree of hype. Owl is one of them that our audience is familiar with. Totally different approach, and it's even been debated among the developer community whether that's even a legitimate approach to privacy. The approach that they are taking. But how what kind of privacy features will Secret enable on Ethereum? How will that look? How will it play out? How will the user experience be? Et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera.
So we'll start by answering like, why does this even matter at all, right? Like, why do private smart contracts even matter? So, it used to be before we had like a healthy, robust DApp ecosystem. Maybe the question wasn't even being asked because we didn't even have applications to worry about, or at least nothing with usage. But now that we do, issues with privacy are popping up all the time. And the issues with privacy are not just like, there's something I don't want people to know about me. Issues of privacy are generally issues of security and usability. So an example that I use all the time when it comes to talking about ETH specifically is DEXs and AMMs, which have a massive front running problem. So we've published a number of times about why privacy preserving smart contracts, which use encrypted inputs, encrypted outputs, and encrypted state, are essential for securing DEXs. And if anybody listening is not really familiar with like front running issues, the idea is that as you're submitting your order to the DEX, somebody, a miner, can see this transaction coming in, front run it with their own order, force you to get a worse price of execution, and effectively arbitrage whoever is trying to interact with the DEX. And the mempool on Ethereum is public. We talk about the dark forest, right? It's a dark forest, but it's public, and the miners can view it. So it creates all sorts of risks. It actually creates a lot of these, when we were talking about like exploits and things like that, like there are a lot of these sort of like exploits that are made possible by the public nature of the mempool. Secret Network has an encrypted mempool. So the types of applications you can build on Secret Network are unique to the blockchain space because other smart contracts use public data as inputs and have public state. Secret Network is unique in that regard. But I don't want that to seem too narrow, like this only matters for DEXs or only matters for DeFi. What it enables is, let's zoom way out. So think about any application that you use today on your phone or on a computer, right? Like I use Uber all the time. I'll use it again because they're terrible at protecting user privacy. But if you were to build a decentralized Uber, right, to try to get around the idea that, what are you doing? She's trying to get in the closet.
Yeah, mine always gets in the closet. It's
there's
her
no
favorite
food
thing
in
to
there.
do. No.
That's the only reason she ever goes anywhere. Oh well. So you've got a decentralized Uber that you're trying to build, right? Like current centralized Uber, it's not very friendly to user data. They got hacked. It sucks. But so you want to build a decentralized one. Well, the issue with your decentralized Uber is that it's going to be using data that's public by default. So instead of Uber leaking your data to somebody somewhere, you're leaking your data to everybody all of the time with decentralized applications. It's the worst of both worlds. You build a decentralized Facebook, it works the same way. Constantly leaking everything that you're doing to interact with that social platform everywhere. It's like people already know this is a problem. Like if they're developing these kinds of applications in the ETH community, like if you're building like Audius is a decentralized Spotify, or if you're building another decentralized Facebook on Ethereum, right? You're going to run into these problems immediately. It's not unknown to developers. But the situation that exists now is like you're going to do something hacky. You're going to have to add privacy after the fact because it's public by default. When you're doing that, it gets extremely expensive to add privacy to anything. It's extremely expensive to put toothpaste back in the tube. Once something is known publicly, to make it private again is tough. But if it starts private by default, it can actually be much cheaper to then reveal it selectively. So private by default is our approach, and that's why it's meaningful. And if you want to see dApps that scale, that are cheaper, that are usable, that protect users, not just their privacy, but like make these platforms like DEXs more usable, like you are going to have privacy by default. You're going to have this capacity for, we call it programmable privacy when we describe these private smart contracts, but it's this idea that you can have arbitrarily complex data privacy controls for decentralized applications. Just like today, you can have sort of arbitrarily complex applications that are decentralized. They just don't have the capacity to control how the data is utilized. So it's a critical layer to Web3 that to this point has just been totally missing.
Now, let me ask you though, before you continue,
Yeah, go ahead.
you know, what's the difference then? Because, you know, you keep talking about, you know, privacy by default. You know, what's the difference in between what you guys are doing and just having publicly available data that may be encrypted, and why is what you're doing more private, more secure, or better even?
So that's what we're saying about the difference between public by default, private by default. Like once something is public by default and then you try to encrypt it again, or like once it's public by default, but then encrypted and then decrypted once, like one of the use cases we're looking at is access control. So I can use the example of Audius, for example, or any sort of decentralized content management platform where you're a creator. Maybe this is something that'll resonate with you because you're a creator as much as you're a trader, as much as you're everything else that I know that you do. But let's say you publish some content, right? If it's public by default, how are you monetizing it? As soon as the link to this content is public, it's not gated from anyone. You can try to like share it selectively with somebody, but once you share it selectively with them, if they always have access to that public data, they can reshare it however they want. There is no access control. Their privacy enables the ability to control then how the data is used after the fact. Because if now you're saying like doing a decentralized Spotify, you're an artist, you're releasing a track, but you only want it to be streamable by certain users, like ones who have paid, you need that capacity to be able to say, these users have access to the keys to decrypt this content under these conditions, and under other conditions, they don't. And so there's applications for that kind of technology, as we're saying, in content creation, but also in decentralized gaming, where like things like even just a basic rock, paper, scissors implementation on Ethereum is kind of like expensive right now and very hacky. You have to do this weird commit reveal mechanism. And with secret network, things like that and things like randomness or auctions or voting go from being like really complicated to implement to basically trivial. And the advantage again is the privacy by default model versus the public by default model. It's the toothpaste in the tube analogy is the one that people seem to get, because you understand that once the toothpaste is out, it's expensive to get it in. But if it starts in and you only squeeze it when you need to, you get exactly the toothpaste that you want every time. It's not as expensive to think about doing it the other way. But because we've been in this space for so long, because everything has been public since inception, even Bitcoin, right? At best, Bitcoin is pseudonymous. It's not like, no one thinks Bitcoin is private, or they shouldn't. But like everything has worked in the blockchain space this way since inception. This is the first time we've ever had the luxury of even thinking about it in a privacy by default world. It's going to take a while for people to sort of wrap their heads around what that actually means, but there's a reason it took us years to build.
Yeah, I mean, typically with anything like this, you know, the adoption doesn't come, you know, until there's some kind of killer app, you know, that
right, exactly.
You know, it's just like the Uniswap, I feel like, was the killer app for Ethereum. You know, it opened people's eyes to the power of a decentralized application.
In
pushed
2017, the killer app was ICOs.
Yeah, the killer app was ICOs.
This is way better. This is way better. I agree.
It's way better. I'm interested. You know, what would you say Secret's killer app is? I mean, are you guys working on anything? Is there anything you guys have that, you know, that will kind of onboard people to the idea that, you know, Secret smart contracts are powerful, and that they enable things that you can't do anywhere else?
Yes, and I think it's been debated within our ecosystem, because we have a very decentralized ecosystem. Everybody cares about something different in our ecosystem, whether it's NFTs or DeFi or secure data sharing for enterprises. Like somebody thinks that something different is the killer app. What I think the killer app is kind of where the focus is of the network right now, which is this idea of secret tokens. So when I describe secret tokens, I'll also be answering your last question about like, why does this matter for Ethereum or Ethereum-based projects? So a secret token is, because Secret Network has its own consensus, it's its own layer one, right? it has smart contracts native to it. Ethereum has smart contracts native to it. One type of smart contract on Ethereum is the ERC20 token standard, which lets anybody sort of create a token on the platform. But a token is just a smart contract. Similarly, on Secret Network, you can have a token smart contract. But obviously, we don't call it ERC20 because the E stands for Ethereum. We call it SNP20, so a Secret Network Improvement Proposal 20. And it's a privacy preserving, like if you think of an ERC20, this is effectively a privacy preserving ERC20. It's like if you smacked an ERC20 and something like Zcash together, you would get this. And you can issue as many of these privacy preserving tokens on Secret Network as you want, but they're obviously most meaningful when they represent something. So the power of a secret token is in representing some other asset. You're wrapping that asset as a secret token on Secret Network. And then everything you do with that token is private by default. If you send it to somebody, if you use it in a DeFi application, if you trade it on like a secret-based AMM or DEX, all of that is private by default. And it's private until the point that you unwrap the asset and you get your original asset back. So the very first secret token, and this won't surprise you, is secret. So it's a privacy token version of secret itself, SCRT. So that's the first privacy token. It's live on mainnet. It's been live for a few weeks. It just launched in, you can now send and receive it from a web wallet. So you can send secret around. And the only thing anybody will ever know is that an address, like your secret address, interacted with the contract. They won't see how many tokens you sent. They won't see to whom, anything at all.
Can people check your balances?
They can check their own balances. So similar to like Monero, what you can do as a user is you can create a viewing key. If you choose to share your viewing key with somebody else, they can verify your balance. But that's my point about private by default and then public when needed. It's like we also have programmable privacy, but we have programmable transparency. If you want to reveal something, if you want to give access to somebody, you can. But instead of it saying like, oh, I'm going to tell everybody my ERC20 balances all over the internet, right? Like what everybody's doing with like trying to copy trade Polychain or whatever. Like now it's all private by default. And if somebody wants to prove that they hold this asset, they can then reveal this about themselves, or they can prove it even without revealing their viewing key. There's mechanisms by they can interact with the contract and prove they have a certain amount of holdings. So those are privacy tokens. You might be understandably curious, like, what's the point of just doing it for secret? Like secret is interesting. Now we get to the second phase of it, which is why not use secret tokens that represent Ethereum-based assets? Because you want this functionality for ERC20s. You can't have this functionality native to Ethereum because Ethereum doesn't have like privacy by default. It has public by default. But we've built an Ethereum bridge, which is currently on testnet and launching on mainnet. I will not say a date. Oh man, I almost said a date. I do know it's coming. But it's currently live on testnet. And what you can do is you can lock your Ethereum on Ethereum, and it will mint a secret Ethereum token on Secret Network. Now you have secret ETH. If you choose to send that secret ETH to another address, nobody knows which address you sent it to. Nobody knows how much you sent to that address. And then when you choose to take your Ethereum off of Secret Network, like you kill the secret token, it like releases the ETH back on the main chain to an address of your choosing. But everything that happened on Secret Network in the meantime, people can't see.
So you could even use, Secret to wash your Ethereum.
I didn't say that.
I mean, that's just kind of what it sounded. I mean, maybe wash is a bad word, but maybe you have, maybe people are watching your Ethereum address. I certainly have this issue, where people have found my Ethereum address and they know, what I enter. Like if I'm trying to accumulate something, the only option I have is just a fucking smash market buy because if I try to average in at all,
exactly.
People will go, oh, he's buying this, I'm going to start it going, and the number goes up, which is quite frustrating.
No, exactly. I mean, what people could see in the event, like let's say you've got 1,000 ETH sitting on the main chain and you wanted to move this ETH to another address and you didn't necessarily want that address to be associated with the initial address, or if you wanted to prove that the new address was your address, you could to the right people, but you don't want everybody to know that you had done this.
Right.
You could lock your ETH on Ethereum. It would mint secret Ethereum. You could send your secret Ethereum to another address on Secret Network. you could use that address to interact with the secret Ethereum smart contract to send, you're sending it to a new address, and then you're burning the secret Ethereum secret Ethereum token on secret network. You're burning it. It releases the ETH back on the main chain, but to a different address.
Right.
So where
that's huge. No.
I think it's massive, but the best part is that this also works for any ERC20 asset.
Because I mean, especially if the privacy set grows large enough, that'll be a huge competitor to things like Tornado Cash. And
so we did out the math, and right now the round trip just for that very trivial like sending ETH one place to another, the round trip for that is a quarter of the cost of Tornado Cash. And we don't have these siloed anonymity sets with Secret Network. Just anybody who's interacting with the secret Ethereum contract is benefiting from those gains in privacy. But what makes all of this really powerful is that's the most trivial case, right? This is transactional privacy, sending something privately from somewhere to somewhere else. But now that you have secret Ethereum, you don't have to just send it to somebody else or send it to yourself and like remint it back on the main chain. You can use it with any application or platform that uses secret tokens. So anything that's using secret SCRT can also use secret Ethereum. So you can imagine a secret AMM being built on secret network, right? And now you're trading your secret ETH for secret, or you're trading it for secret link, or you're trading it for secret atom.
Yeah, and they're already tokenizing everything on Ethereum. So I mean, would you guys just, rather than having a secret Bitcoin, would it be a secret wrap Bitcoin, a secret REN Bitcoin, a secret
conceivably if there were enough liquidity in the bridge, then absolutely, right? That might be a lot more trivial than trying to build like a separate BTC bridge.
Right.
But there are assets that are valuable, especially, so we're very familiar with the atom and Tendermint world. There's some very unique tech in that world. And the way that we see it, it's very difficult to unlock those assets unless you're comfortable with centralized exchanges being the gatekeepers, the value that is locked in those assets. So when we think about Ethereum, Ethereum is absolutely a hub. We think that we're a privacy hub in a lot of ways. We also think that Secret Network can be a liquidity hub for unlocking access to all of these other assets. And the reason for that is because we are providing a very particular service, which is privacy as a service. And it's so unique, or at least this is our assumption, that uniqueness of that, and then also the usability advantages that a privacy first AMM could provide, not only to regular users, but liquidity providers who get just hosed all the time by having their positions public to everyone. We think that that's going to be attractive to everybody across the ecosystem once they can get their hands on it.
So, I mean, just out of curiosity, you said it's essentially like smashing like an ERC20 and Zcash together, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding that the actual underlying technology isn't, ZK snarks or anything like Zcash uses. Can you go into or talk about the technology a little bit? I know it uses secure enclaves. Why did you guys move to secure enclaves from SMPC? Originally, secure multi-party computation, which there's pros and cons to both of them, of course. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about, why the secure enclaves were chosen and the advantages that provides over SMPC. And also, and especially in your early days, I think a lot of people compared Enigma to REN, or at least REN's original vision. I think you got kind of pegged or painted as competitors at one point. It's obviously diverged a bit from that point. But why did you guys kind of shift the vision? Why did you move to a different technology, et cetera?
Yeah. So the first point to always make around these things about which technology is better, because I've been straight up asked what's better, MPC, ZK snarks, enclaves. It's there's no absolute better when it comes to really. I'm speaking specifically about privacy and security technologies, but you could really say it for any technology. Everything has a trade-off between usability, security, the attack surface. You are always, as a technology designer, trying to make these trade-offs. So the question for us was not what's the perfect technology? It's what is needed in the market today, and what are the technologies available to deliver that product and to deliver that utility. So Enigma, as you're mentioning, the Enigma white papers, this is back in 2015. It was discussing secure multi-party computation, which is a purely cryptography-based form of privacy technology, which is sort of achieving the same sort of holy grail idea that we're trying to do with secret network, which is you can take encrypted data from multiple sources, do computations over the collected data set. No one individually interacting with the smart contract or the protocol has access to all of the data or anything beyond their own individual contribution. Yet somehow we can all know cryptographically secure that the output of the computation was correct, right? The idea of correctness being very important in the blockchain space, the importance of verifiability. So that's a purely cryptography-based approach. The thing about these pure cryptography solutions like fully homomorphic encryption, SMPC, and again, remember that like Enigma, like in the original division, was founded by an MPC researcher. Like Guy was an MPC researcher. It's a decade or more away for generalizable use cases. There are like, for MPC, there's use cases like key management where on a product by product basis, it might be a very effective solution. And there's definitely going to be solutions built on top of secret networks like privacy by default tech at the protocol level. There's going to be like MPC enabled solutions built on top that are going to add additional security properties. But generalizable MPC is not here today, and it won't be here for a very long time. And when we looked at the trade-off between having like a 20-year roadmap or a 3-year roadmap, it was pretty clear where we need to go in the short term is towards usability and towards performance. And when it comes to privacy technologies that offer usability and offer performance, secure hardware is definitely the best choice available to developers today, which is not to say they're not without weaknesses. So as an ecosystem, like we work very, very hard across the ecosystem to mitigate some of the challenges of secure hardware. Like if there's new exploits that are found, and all of these exploits are mostly like speculative in nature, have not been carried out in production or could not be carried out in production. But even so, we require every node in the network to operate with the latest patches enabled, because we can't take the chance that there's a single node in the network that has been compromised in some capacity. And that creates a much higher bar for a node to operate on our network, but it provides a higher privacy guarantee for the developers who rely on secret network to secure the privacy of their own products built on top. So we're very confident that like we've made the best possible choice based on today's available technology. And because we have an expertise as an ecosystem in secure enclaves, we take the onus away from the developer with having to understand this. Like if you're a developer coming in now trying to figure out how secure enclaves work and integrating it on a product by product basis, you're going to be sitting there for years, kind of like we were, figuring out the best practices, learning all of the like weird exploits and loopholes that now we have a very strong expertise in. So now the developer doesn't do that, the protocol does that. And the developer just has to build smart contracts on top of something that's solving the privacy problem for them. But if there's new solutions that come available, if there's better technologies that get integrated, the way that the protocol is constructed, it's flexible enough. Like let's say there were a new type of enclave that we wanted the network to support. If there were a majority vote of the network to enable like compliance with that, we could have the network also have support for other enclave technologies. We're currently using what we believe to be the best available enclave technology. And if that changes, we will want to change. We're not married to a technology, we're married absolutely to a product vision. And we're definitely married to the idea that, you know, we need to maintain the usability and the security of the protocol above all else. Otherwise, we're either broken and exploited and hacked, or we're a purely academic project that never gets adoption.
Sure.
You have to sit in the middle, and you have to be really aware of the trade-offs in the middle. Otherwise, you do end up pulled to one of those sides, which is not an acceptable outcome.
So just out of curiosity, you know, because I know there was a lot of fun and stuff like that around the use of secure enclaves. You know, a lot of these exploits that, as you said, are theoretical, and even when they were trying to be, you know, people tried to carry them out, they were unable to do so. Are these exploits that are like physical exploits of the hardware itself, or are these exploits that are, you know, able to be carried out remotely?
Generally, any of these exploits that you're hearing about, like it's researchers who had physical access to the hardware, and they're like highly speculative attacks. But yeah, like that's generally speaking what we're talking about. And we're also talking about secret network being a decentralized network. So, you know, you can't be sitting in a remote facility somewhere trying to exploit nodes where you don't have any physical access to the hardware, or like don't know their location. Like it gets even more complicated to like try to imagine these sorts of things happening in production.
So the fact that you're using these secure enclaves though in a decentralized network adds pretty much a whole new paradigm of security around the enclave idea. or how
Yes,
would you frame
but
that at least?
yes, but I know I usually try to get like be a like yes and on this, but like it's a yes but when it comes to this, because decentralization, as you're saying, absolutely it adds some security properties. Ethereum gains some security properties from decentralization. Ethereum loses some security properties based on decentralization, and that happens at every level of not only the technology stack but like the social stack. So because who's to say that like people, like if you die and lose your private keys, normally that doesn't make you lose your bank account, but it kind of does if you're in the crypto space and you didn't have like things set up. So decentralization is always like, even though we're saying, yeah, it's going to have some usability and privacy and security advantages in our network, decentralization also always does like create additional complexities. So I want to agree with you, and I mostly do, that decentralizing secret network is another reason why we're mitigating some of the risks of secure enclaves. But I can't say that decentralization by itself solves these things. Like you can't just like plug a bunch of secure enclave enabled computers together and say you've got a privacy network. What we do is a lot more complicated than that, and thankfully so.
So, I mean, just out of curiosity, though, it kind of sounds like, I mean, do you have to have a bunch of specialized hardware to run this? I mean, what kind of hardware is secure enclave enabled hardware?
So to run on our network, yeah, you do need specialized hardware. So specifically right now, we're focusing on the use of Intel SGX, which is probably the most widely adopted enclave technology that there is. And there's a few cloud providers that enable it. There's some there's some OEMs that support it. And then there's only certain manufacturers that have actually enabled all of the patches that would allow you to actually operate in the network. So whereas in like a proof of work network, there's specialized hardware required, but it's required to be competitive. For secret network, there's specialized hardware required, but it's required in order to secure the entire network for the
Sure.
developers who then depend on it. But if you're a user or if you're a developer, you do not need to be operating your own SGX enabled device. That's only if you're a node, if you're a validator in the network itself. That's why there is like specialized rewards, like in most proof of stake networks, right? There's specialized rewards for the validators, and we have a delegated proof of stake network. So anybody can stake, anybody can get rewards for delegating their secret. But we do rely on some of the best like node operators in the world to continue securing the network. And right now, I believe we have 46 or 47 active mainnet validators, even with like the super high like hardware requirements. When I say super high, I don't necessarily mean super expensive, but it just means like you do need to have these devices enabled, and you do need to have these enclaves patched to be compliant with what we know to be best practices around like making sure they're secured against even the most speculative attacks.
So, it sounds like can anyone be a validator? Assuming that they meet the hardware requirements. I mean, would they have to be voted in as a validator? By
Nope.
the so
It's
you meet the hardware requirement. Is there an application process, or is it just that the
man, come on
code
by.
is the application?
It's an open source network. Come on
Sure,
by. It's
sure.
permissionless. Anybody can start their own. We call them secret nodes because why not? So anybody can start their own secret node. The network is capped at 50 nodes. After 50 nodes, so the way that it works is the top 50 nodes by stake are considered to be in the active set. It's similar to other Tendermint chains.
Sure.
So if you have one of the 50 highest staked nodes with the most secrets staked or bonded to it, then you're in the active set. But anybody can run a full node in the network. You just won't be receiving rewards. You'll still be like helping to secure the network. It's only the top 50 nodes though by stake who are treated as the active validators, and they get rewards based on mining each block.
But you can stake without being a validator. I mean, do you lease your stake to a validator? How does that work?
Yeah, so the way that it works in a delegated proof of stake network is if I have secrets sitting around in my ledger, for example, I can delegate it. So I go to one of our block explorers and I look at the list of available validators. I can see their commission rates. I can see everything else. I go and I select one. I can delegate as many or as few of the secrets as I want to that particular validator. And now that those secrets are considered bonded, so they count towards that validator's voting power in the network, which is the likelihood that they're going to be selected to mine the next block effectively. And as a result, I get a share of their rewards proportionate to my share of their stake. So if I have 50% of the coins staked to that validator, then I get 50% of that validator's rewards minus the commission. That's basically how it works. So the way that the validators stay in business is that commission, or by
Sure.
staking their own coins, which they can enjoy the returns for with no commission. So it's, if you think about the economy that's emerging around Secret Network and other proof of stake networks, is really cool because you have the developers building the applications, you have the users of those applications, you have the wallets and other tooling for accessing those applications. You have the delegators who are participating in governance, because it's a governance token, right? If you hold secret, you can vote on on-chain proposals. You effectively own and control the network. And then there's the validator economy, where you're just there to operate the hardware. But a lot of our validators also build tooling, provide wallet support. Some of them run our like non-English communities. They're located all over the world. So it's really cool to see this economy emerge where validators want to support multiple ecosystems. So like Staked and Figment, like they run nodes in our network. So they're like Dokia Capital, Chorus One, some of the biggest like Tezos and Cosmos validators in the world are active on our network. But there's also nodes that only operate on Secret Network. They only exist to help secure Secret Network because they're particularly privacy passionate. So we're seeing this crazy, awesome, multi-tiered economy emerge. And unless the incentives work at every layer of that economy, we don't have a network, we don't have an ecosystem. But because they are working, we've seen a lot of growth. It's been really exciting.
So just out of curiosity, because that sounds really intimidating, when you keep talking about hardware, the hardware requirements, specialized hardware, if I'm just some nerd and I go out and, I bought the top of the line Intel PC, is that going to be, or is there a high probability that's going to be SGX enabled? Or do I have to buy the server grade chips, or, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, we're starting to realize that, like, to ensure that you're going to get patches that keep you compliant. Like, again, like we could make the network more accessible. We could open up the amount of like hardware that is compliant for the network, but it would not give people the confidence necessarily that we're as secure as we claim, right? Like, and especially if you position yourself as like a privacy by default project, you want to ensure that you're providing, like, you're actually living up to the privacy and security guarantees that you're trying to give for the network. So it is actually a high bar. I don't want to understate the bar for operating a node. And because the network is capped at 50 nodes regardless, like, it isn't something that's going to concern most people, like trying to run a node in the network. Like, most people don't run their own Bitcoin node. They could and they should, but it's a different vision for our network, because top of mind for us above all else is the security of the users who are going to rely on it, and the security of the developers who are going to build on top of Secret. So I don't want to like understate it and make you think like you can just go down to Best Buy and become a node in the network. But there are cloud providers like Azure, for example. You can go into Azure. We're currently already in the Azure marketplace. It's basically a one-click process for setting up a Secret node through Azure.
Oh, and I can just boom.
And then basically just boom. Like, if you're used to other providers like AWS, like AWS doesn't currently, I don't know about the future, provide support for this sort of stuff. But with like Azure, for example, it's quite straightforward. So a few validators in our network use Azure, but others have set up their own like server infrastructure because they serve multiple networks. And it's cool. It helps with decentralization. If everybody's running a node in a cloud provider, you're not as decentralized as you think. Right. So we're trying to find ways that we can, again, balance the decentralization of the network, the security of the network, make it so people can operate their own nodes in a more decentralized fashion, but not at the cost of security. And I think over time, we're going to find better and better solutions for how we can open up the network, or have side chains available for like people to be operating in side chains, which would require different security properties. But for the most part, if you're a developer or a user, you don't have to care about any of this. You just have to be secure in the fact that like some of the best node operators in the world are supporting our network. You can delegate to them. You can participate directly in governance and kind of sleep easy knowing that the network is being secured by who I would consider to be the best possible professionals that we could have supporting our network. They have like, I think they all support like dozens of networks at this point, and they have fail safes, they have backup systems, they have a lot of expertise that I can only aspire to, man. I don't know nothing about nothing.
You kind of got me reminiscing on what 2017 was like for a bit there. You said you've got that one-click Azure setup, and I remembered the 5x pumps on the Azure partnership announcements. So pretty funny. Yeah, those were better. Those were better times. Maybe we're coming into a time like that again.
We might be. Keep an eye out for something like that, I guess.
Well, we'll see. Now, just out of curiosity, though, if I'm a fucking geek, like I've got no Droid cluster, I've
Yeah.
got a pure Linux box and a Windows PC. I've got them linked together with a product called Synergy, and I use both of them for different things daily. I mean, they both have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
If I am just a fucking nerd, like, and I would imagine anybody watching still at this point is a fucking nerd. Like, let's be honest, because we got into the nerd speak, and the viewership dropped off a little bit. We started off with the Moon Boy antics,
We
but
can
just
bring it back.
yeah, we are going to bring it back towards the end. We're going to give the people a little FOMO.
Give them what they want.
But like I'm a fucking geek. How much money do I need to have my own setup and not have to rely on Azure for hosting? Are we talking $500? Are we talking $2,000? What am I going to need? Because if you're doing it on your own, you're probably going to want a redundant internet connection. You're going to want battery backups. You're going to want there's a lot more cost to like making the perfect
Yep.
node setup than people realize if you really want it to be server grade bulletproof. How much would that just basic setup run me if I've got a little extra money right now, Bitcoin's on the moon and I'm bored and I want to do a
Let's
little
just say,
project. What am I looking at here?
I mean, it's an excellent question. So we have an interesting governance structure for our ecosystem. So we have a number of community-run committees, and one of our most successful committees is our infrastructure committee. So the people who contribute to that are all of our mainnet validators, like the people who have gone through the trouble of testing dozens of different hardware solutions for the network and have landed either on like cloud computing via Azure, or they've done there's actually one company called Chain of Secrets that set up their own VPS solution. I think they're supporting like
Oh,
over 10 different like server setups where it's like for like as low as $45 a month, you can get hosting on a compatible server that they'll host for you effectively, but you manage it, but they'll ensure that it's
I
always
mean, how
compliant.
much is it for my own hardware though? I want
Well,
to I
that's
want
why
to
I'm
throw I want to
saying.
throw my secret node in a box with LEDs and shit on it, and
I know, and like neon, yeah. That's why I'm saying like the right person to ask would be somebody like Chain of Secrets who's
sure.
done the work to like set this up across like multiple, or like Occlusion is also a validator in our network who I know is going through
Cool.
some of this server setup right now. So I don't want to give you an answer on stream and have it be like I was off by an order of magnitude. I would say that the numbers that you're throwing around, like it's going to be closer to 2,000 than 500 if you're
Sure.
doing it yourself. That said, I know that they're trying to bring the cost down on the infrastructure committee because they like to have backup, right? They like to have sentry nodes in the network, right? And if you
Right.
need multiple SGX enabled nodes, then you're going to like start seeing even further costs. So anybody still listening, you nerds, at this point, join our infrastructure committee calls because you can ask that question and get a really good answer. But for most of you who aren't going to run your own node, there are still options for somebody else to host it for you that aren't Azure, but are still really good and really cost effective. And you can make money charging commission to people if you can attract the delegators. But yeah, really, it's up to all levels of nerdiness or commitment or how crazy you are.
We have a user in chat. Vinegar333 says Tor is a nerd.
I am a nerd. It's true, but little do you know. I'm sure some of your chat may know, but then others may not know. The reason I live in Chicago, the reason I got my start here is because I started my career as an options trader, not as a nerd. So I was a economics and game theory major. So I'm much more interested in like the incentive design part of blockchain than I am about like the smart contract side of blockchain a lot of the time. Both matter a ton, but I am actually a trader by heart. I love liquidity. I love when we build liquidity focused solutions in the secret ecosystem. So I'm a huge nerd, but I'm kind of like a liquidity nerd too. And I did a lot of options market making and HFT stuff. So
So I'm sure like a lot of this new DeFi shit has really got you excited.
it's got me
Seeing
super
what your background
excited,
is.
super fucking scared,
Yeah.
and super excited. Like it's like when we talk about these attack surfaces, like composable DeFi stuff, it's like you plug all the bricks together. Like in my world, in the options market making world, you wanted to know exactly how every part of the mechanism worked because we were the pirate ships cruising around trying to extract all the money out of it. I know those same nerds are in the DeFi ecosystem now, but with like zero accountability, going around trying to find these exploits. They're not all white hats. So it makes me nervous. In the real world, somebody like tries to exploit the market structure of like the CME or something like that. Like they'll find out what happened.
Right.
They'll investigate a flash crash.
If you're not white hat, they'll come fuck you. Like,
Yeah. The DeFi world is a lot more Wild West. And that's what concerns me, is like eventually one day somebody's just going to be like holding back on some protocols, like crazy base layer level exploit. Like at the protocol level, you can't really do these exploits, but at the application level, when everything is composable, yeah, I always dread it, because it's always a new headline of something like Pickle or whatever, where it's something getting crazy smoked. And you're just like, I was used to my face getting ripped off by like JP Morgan or Susquehanna.
Right.
Like if my face is getting ripped off by like two dudes in Ukraine who just like know the smart contracts better than me, not because they're better traders, but because they like read the tech, like I can't really ultimately as a trader compete with that. It makes me nervous. I can compete on my turf. I can compete on my terms. I can compete on the market structure that I understand. But the smart contract structure, as you said, if you can't trust the auditors at a certain point, just because the auditors are no longer the best in the game, then we all go back to the same playing field of like, how safe is DeFi going to be? How safe can DeFi be? So it scares me when we build a little past our capabilities, but that's the only way to, push the envelope, I guess.
I haven't even like
get yourself burned.
Thought about that angle, and I can't believe I haven't. That what if they're a protocol like Aave or something like that, or Aave or whatever you want to fucking call it. Like what if somebody is sitting on just the mother load exploit, and they're waiting for it to be $1 billion problem, or some kind of problem, when the FOMO is so high. It's interesting, people actually were having conversations with the harvest.finance hacker, through signing transactions, I believe, and they're including messages in the transactions. I'm not 100% sure.
Only in DeFi.
But famously, it's kind of funny. Famously, there was somebody that came out with this bullshit story about how they were a nurse and they wanted him to think of them the next time they're getting cared for and blah blah blah. And he sent that person half the money back. So now everybody, the meme is that everybody is sending these messages that they're a nurse and they're that they're have trouble and this and that. But an interesting piece of communication from that hacker, and it's also interesting to me that a lot of times these hacks happen and then the money just sits there forever. They're not interested in making millions and millions of dollars and washing it. Of course, some of them are, but these Galaxy Brain guys that are carrying out the most recent large hacks, and I would assume it's probably the same dude or same group, due to the complexity, due to his MO, which is to take all the money and fucking leave it there forever, and not touch it. Maybe there's plans for it down the road, when there's a larger anonymity set, with Tornado Cash or other solutions. But it's interesting. One of the things in one of the messages back, that this guy sent to somebody, he said something along the lines of like, DeFi is super fucking dangerous, and it sucks that we have to learn these lessons now. But if we don't learn these lessons now, then it's going to be a catastrophic problem at some point in the future. So it does seem like it's kind of like a white black hat. He's not he's gonna hurt you. You're going to feel it. But it seems as if, maybe his morals are fucked and things like that. But it does seem as if he thinks he's doing the right thing, or a lot of these guys think they're doing the right thing. We're talking about hardcore cyberpunk, like guys that truly are in it for the tech, and they know that the tech is not going to succeed if we just keep doing all this moon boy shit and we just let it run rampant. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what side of the fence I fall on. Like, I definitely see these as being like extremely large in prod bug bounties. And, if that's the way that the protocol developers are approaching it too, like if they're comfortable with that and the funds that are funding these things are comfortable with that, then like, maybe everybody is winning. Maybe everybody is better off of all this. Like, I would personally return the funds if they're just going to sit there in perpetuity, and just like, versus like sit there and be like, now you got to think about what you did. It's like, you won't learn if you get it back. It's like, well, on the other hand, like if you're being extractive of the ecosystem every time that it fails, I inevitably assume that most of these things will fail due to their composability, because you're constantly increasing the attack surface. And if you're constantly extracting money from the ecosystem every time it happens, you are eventually hurting its growth. But maybe there's some sort of structure by which all of these exploits if there was a white hat who was like centralizing all of these exploited funds in a DAO, and then there were white hat hackers who controlled and deployed the capital in the DAO towards like better auditing systems or to like train developers to become auditors, you can think about other ways that you could be like redeploying these funds versus sitting in an account in perpetuity. So while I empathize with the dude being like, people got to learn, I also think it's a waste of capital. It's a waste of resources that could be going towards the growth and security of the entire ecosystem. And hopefully someday somebody who has this much talent also has that much foresight and that much commitment to the ETH ecosystem and beyond to try to institute some sort of system like that. That's what I would prefer to see.
Oh yeah, me too. It is interesting, you know, some of the earlier hacks, the guy was sending half the money back. You know, he said, yeah, I'm going to take half. It's going to stay here. I'm going to send half back. You know, you can pay some reparations or, you know, use it for security audits or, you know, whatever you want to do. But, you know, half of this is just staying here, you know, and that sucks for you. It is really interesting to see. You know, I know Pickle wasn't the last one. Pickle was extremely complex if you've read the reports on it, and you know it wasn't flash loan based, which is something that's new. Apparently, there were 8 conditions that all had to occur simultaneously, and if any one of these 1 condition or 8 conditions did not occur, then the exploit would fail. So it was kind of just like a perfect storm exploit, and I mean, the guys that were looking at it were extremely impressed. I mean, we're talking about like the best guys, like you've got like Bantag and, you know, guys like that that have redistributed funds from the EMN exploit, which was, you know, one of the first big flash loan attacks, I think. You know, BZRX or BZX protocol, I think, had one a little bit earlier than that. It was flash loan related. But it is really scary out there. It's the dark forest. So I would imagine at some point in the future, there's going to be another one and another one and another one. It's just dominoes, man. They just keep falling. And there's really no end in sight to it because there's, you know, I don't think that the guys that are the galaxy brains, you know, that are coming up with these ideas are the guys that are at these audit firms. I don't know why that is, you know, but that just seems to be how it's playing out. Now, you know, we
can
have
make more from destroying everything than auditing everything. Then, you know,
and maybe, you know, a lot of people do complain that, you know, the bug bounties are shit, and you know, a lot of times these guys will find the bugs and they'll say, come to claim the bounty, and the team will say, fuck you, you know, and they won't pay the bounty. So maybe, you know, somebody's angry about a situation like that, or all of this shit is, you know, I'm super bullish on insurance and DeFi. There's a couple of protocols that are emerging and creating products to ensure this stuff.
So
I think,
imagine if you could create these decentralized privacy-preserving insurance pools where you can provide insurance to the pool, but people can't see that you've actually provided like your insurance in particular to the pool, because some of these insurance protocols are also exploitable.
Oh, 100%.
So this is what I mean. It's like
it's a way for the hacker to get paid.
These Legos. Yeah. So many of these Legos get a lot more interesting when you do have programmable privacy. Not to be like a huge shill about it, but like insurance is another one, and credit is another one as well that I'm deeply passionate about. Like imagine on-chain credit scoring, but you don't have to disclose your addresses publicly. You just prove to the application that you control certain addresses, and only in the context of that application, it releases like some sort of under collateralized loan to you as a result. But it doesn't compromise your privacy to do so. But it also, like, you know, restrains the idea that you can somehow get infinite liquidity from nothing, which is violating a few natural laws of finance. That's the other thing I was going to say. I described the natural law of security, right? It's always a trade-off between security, usability, performance, all those things. Same thing in trading, in investing. There is a natural law between risk and return. If you see returns that seem insane relative to the risk that you are taking, it is because you do not see the risk that you are taking. And all of DeFi comes with this unspoken, but now widely spoken, existential risk of exploits. And you're effectively betting that if an exploit occurs, that you will get all your money back because it was a white hat doing the exploit and not a black hat. But that's where the funding for these like crazy APYs we were seeing comes from. It comes from the idea that you're actually taking a lot of unseen risks. So we'll see if the insurance protocols themselves actually solve this problem, or whether they themselves have unseen risks, and we will need to insure the insurers, and so on ad infinitum. So yeah.
I was about to say, because now, I can hack an address. I'm going to take all their stable coins, hack a protocol. And now my address is flagged. It's being tracked by, the best guys in the world. They're watching you wash it. They're watching you do this, watching you do that. Now you get a situation where a guy comes and takes out a massive insurance policy against something, that something gets hacked, and he doesn't have to be paid by the funds he stole. He gets paid by the insurance policy, which could be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, looking at certain protocols, is there like an abnormal amount of coverage taken out on a certain thing at a certain time? I mean, that would certainly make me really nervous if I was farming somewhere and all of a sudden you see massive coverage emerging for that farm.
It's one of those things where TVL is not necessarily a leading indicator of growth, but so yeah, you're right. It's like this is actually something I haven't thought a lot about, is whether now you're going to see arsonists for these protocols. It's like somebody discovers an exploit on their own protocol, so they exploit it first for the coverage, and then they get the PR for returning the funds. But
you're totally right.
You're just offloading all of the risk and the PR hits to third parties, right? Like, there's the fact that there's so many exploits that have been discovered at the protocol layer does not mean we're not going to see more exploits discovered at either the regulatory layer or the social layer. Like, we haven't even begun to see all of this stuff. So I do agree with the hackers when they say, you only know once it's in prod, because we can speculate on this all we want, but an audit of the contract is not enough to know how these things are actually going to perform in the wild. We have to see. So I'm excited to see our sandbox get off the ground, because the secret sandbox of DeFi, because it's going to create new types of solutions, new types of protections that I think are going to get integrated into the core of the DeFi stack. I think we can protect against some of these things. I also think there's a possibility that some of the privacy tech is going to be used to, make some of the attacks more effective. But I also believe that it can be used to solve the attacks. And I believe that it will be far more of an advantage for end users at the end of the day than a threat. It will protect them more than it hurts them. It will be used on both sides, but that's inevitable anyway. When the tech exists, it will be used for good and evil.
So, we have been here for a while. I really want to talk about two more things, and then we'll conclude this. First and foremost, Secret is totally new technology. You guys have built this from the ground up. You've been obviously working on it for a really long time. You've got some of the best guys in the world building this protocol. That's just facts. That's not, anybody jerking anybody else off. I mean, you guys have the guys building this shit. So just out of curiosity, when you are the best guys in the world, who audits your protocol? Who's taking a look at your contract code?
Right.
Who's doing these things when you guys are the guys? And I understand, just because, a lot of these black hats and stuff, they haven't had a lot of time to really get into it, or really the incentives don't exist yet for them to get into it. How do you ensure that, you're releasing something that is, which you consider to be as safe as possible to your user base?
So this is where standards help, right? Like, if you made up a new Ethereum token standard right now, you'd want to make sure it's secure, or you just use an ERC20 standard and kind of move from there, because that ERC20s are being used in tons and tons of places and have not, we've not found a universal sort of exploit for this. So it really does come back to, we don't have infinity contracts deployed on Secret Network. It's been quite slow. And we started with the Secret tokens standard, knowing that developing standards initially is really important. So there's a Secret token standard. We're developing an NFT standard, all these things. So if you can take it slow and focus on standards first and see how those work in production, it gives you more confidence down the line. When it comes to auditing this stuff, so smart contracts on Secret Network are not written in Solidity. It's not an EVM chain, right? It's a Tendermint chain. So our smart contracts are written in Rust. So you can't just take the Solidity expertise that has been developed in the space and now say okay, now audit all the Secret Network contracts. It doesn't work that way. It's a different sort.
I mean, Rust is a security-focused programming language, isn't it?
Which is why it was chosen. Yes, it has a number of advantage, and we do believe that in the future Web3 world, there's tons of protocols using Rust. Near is using Rust. Polkadot is using Rust in like a lot of places. Like it's in a bunch of like client implementations. So it's everywhere in this space. There's an entire group called Rust and Blockchain that people should check out for all the projects that are using Rust. So it's a universal language well beyond, the blockchain space. It's been implemented everywhere. It's the fastest growing language, most popular language, I think, right now as well. I'm not as like much of a Rust chill as some of the devs in our ecosystem, but some of them are like big Rust stations is what they call them.
Rust stations.
They're even big. They're way bigger nerds than me, man. If you think I'm bad. But anyway, yeah. So
oh man,
it is a different sort of thing we have to think about on the audit side. It's not the same sort of generalizable auditor skill set that comes from the ETH ecosystem. So there's no great answer to your question because, like, you're right. Like when you're building bleeding edge tech, what is going to give you the confidence that this stuff is ready for production? Well, really, only production is going to give you confidence it's ready for production. But there are things that you can and should be doing to ensure when these things are in production, like they're at least known knowns, and we can have multiple iterations of the secret token contract being deployed on our network, support secret ETH, secret ERC20s, all of these conforming to the same standard. So we know like what we're getting into versus every time reinventing the wheel and needing to do like a complete audit from scratch of the whole mechanism. That's a big advantage, but you're right. Like this is universal to every protocol. Everybody has this problem. We don't think that we have a particularly better solution. We have not solved the who audits the auditors problem. But if somebody does, maybe they've decentralized it. I don't know. So decentralization obviously just solves everything immediately. So, but maybe then we'd like to just implement whatever the best practice is. Like that's all we can do.
I was thinking, it'd be really interesting to see some kind of protocol that's focused on providing, kind of like an antivirus protocol for DeFi, if that makes sense, to where this one protocol is monitoring certain protocols and monitoring activity, and through the ability to scan, see what's in the mempool, and understand it, can maybe mitigate some of these attacks in real time. I think that would be a really cool thing to see come out, and surely somebody will do that at some point, right? Maybe, I don't know. Is that possible? I think it is.
At this point, now that I've seen what's been happening in this space, like I'm confident in saying that like probably anything is possible. And as soon as I say something is impossible is exactly when it's going to launch, or is exactly when Ripple's going to hit $1. So I'm not going to say anything anymore. Like I'm just going to let the world be what it is. I'm very like heads down on the secret ecosystem. It's to my detriment a lot of the time. It's to the benefit of the ecosystem, but like I don't get to see 99% of the cool stuff that gets built. Right. So I love when people bring it to my attention, because then we get to, learn from the best practices, see how we can plug in. And then I just get to say, wow. But I definitely don't anymore say we'll never see that, because we always do.
Oh yeah, it's inevitable. Now the final topic I want to discuss is going to bring you back to your roots. You said you were originally an options trader. Have you looked at any of the options flow for Bitcoin? Apparently the most popular option right now on Deribit is the 36,000 strike call option for Bitcoin. I don't know what the expiration on that was on that particular one, but apparently there's a lot of open interest on that one. People are super bullish, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about this cycle? Because I've had all sorts of people on, and I talk to traders daily, and everybody, some people, Bitcoin's going to 100K by the end of December, or Bitcoin's going to this bubble isn't as big as the last, it's only going to 30K, or you've got guys like Citibank and JP Morgan has a target of like 180K. Citibank has a target of like 300K. These guys always throw out outrageous as fuck targets, because they want people to FOMO. They want people to FOMO in. They want to be those guys that called it. Yeah. But what do you think? Not in terms of just what's the ceiling or potential ceiling here, but also how long is it going to take to get it? Are we in another, classic Bitcoin bubble where it's going to go up a lot and then it's going to go down a lot, or are we more witnessing the birth of a new type of bubble, like we've seen? Maybe like an Amazon post.com is the argument that some people have made, to where, maybe in the past you had these insane boom and bust cycles, but maybe right now we are seeing finally organic growth and adoption of Bitcoin. It's PayPal has it, Square, you've got institutional investors that are super long tail that are entering Bitcoin. Just what are your thoughts on all of that?
So two things. One is to say, like, anytime you ask an options trader like a question like this, like, you always know you're going to get a response that involves like a time horizon and a range of probabilities. If you ask Talking Head on CNBC, and this is why they keep getting invited back, they always say it's going to be 30,000 on January 15th. And then they leave and everybody shakes hands, and they, they'll get a lot of work out of that. You bring an options trader and they're like, well, looking at the like near-term expiries, like we see a lot of open interest around the 20,000 strike. It seems like they're pricing in around like a 60% probability will one touch, and then like you just get the longest, most convoluted bullshit. And I am no exception. Like that, I get long-winded like that, so I'll try to keep it short. The way I see things moving in this space is like it has so much to do with the market structure and like where the flow is coming from for each of these products. The flow from Bitcoin coming now from like the institutions, but also retail, which has to then flow into like ETH and the DeFi ecosystem, because people can now capitalize their BTC, right? Like, and wrap it and plug it into DeFi and get leverage on it, which then has downstream impact on the rest of like the alt ecosystem. The question is only how tight these cycles are going to be. Like, the Bitcoin wheel is going to lurch forward and it's going to drag the ETH wheel forward with it. And it's already dragging Ripple and IOTA. So it's going to drag other shit after that, and so on and so forth, until it works its way all through the complex of this long tail of coins. And it really depends, where are those coins available, who launches what tech when, like what is it plugged into, what is the use. Now this part matters, which it didn't 3 years ago. Where is the usage? Like, there's going to be more metrics like for on-chain usage of these protocols, where that's going to matter for like what happens. And only once those cycles kind of play out, I think we're finally starting to see things trickle in. I was around, November, December 2017. So I remember when the shift happened very, very suddenly from alts are dead, Bitcoin is moon, it's over, to like 6 weeks later, 30 different things had 15x'd, right? And like the narrative completely flipped. And then everything crashed because the narrative had completely flipped. We're probably going to see that cycle again. We have at least one massive alt cycle sitting in front of us, I think, before we push Bitcoin to those like 30K, 50K highs. I think that as we're testing these all-time highs, and as the retail narrative is starting to return around Bitcoin, you're not only going to see Bitcoin go up, because these days when you research cryptocurrency and how to buy, you don't only see how to buy Bitcoin. You see how to buy everything. Whether you're on Robinhood or whether you're on PayPal, you've got multiple options. So you're always looking. And when you're starting to look at the top 5, you will look at the top 50. And then you're looking at the top 250. And it's just like, because the gains have already happened, you're just looking ahead, looking ahead, looking ahead. So we're going to lurch forward, not all at once. So I don't think Bitcoin is going to break the all-time highs this month. I think there's a chance in December. If it happens, I think people are saying like it'll sometimes murder the alt complex. I don't see it. Like, now that you see ETH going to 600, I think I've been saying this for a while, but with ETH going to 600 now, you're not going to suddenly see ETH go back to like 400 and Bitcoin at 30K. Like, right now there's too much on the ground. There's too many ways to monetize your Bitcoin into more leverage on ETH, which turns into a way to leverage everything else. Like, we're probably passing the point of no return very soon. And I've got my eye on that like 1 trillion cap number, because when that passes,
me too.
When that passes, now you get like this crazy blow off top potential of like 3-4 trillion cap. And then we can start talking about whether it's a bubble. Until then, I think the usage has caught up, and I'm super fucking excited to say that for the first time in my life.
I've always kind of thought, maybe the top is in when people start talking about the market cap of cryptocurrency, flipping the market cap of gold. The top on Ethereum was in the last time in 2017 when people started talking about Ethereum flipping Bitcoin. I think that yes, level of euphoria, oh my God, cryptocurrency's the new gold, it's going to flip gold. I definitely think that's going to happen at some point. I don't think it's going to be right here, right now. I'd love to see a future where that does happen, because that means we made it. It means that crypto has wide adoption. It's improved the world, improved transparency, every aspect of our technological lives can be improved by what's going on right now as it matures. So, that's a really interesting thought for me. How bullish are you on Ethereum in general? I'm a well-known ETH tard. Not that it matters. A lot of people get so upset when you say, "Oh, Ethereum's going to flip Bitcoin's market cap." It doesn't really matter what has the highest
matter.
market cap. Both of them have their use cases. And when we're looking at a tokenized future, you see things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't lose value, in my opinion, by being tokenized and held in other chains. If anything, that adds value. It takes more supply off market. It brings capabilities to Bitcoin that didn't exist before. Do you think Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin on this particular run, or do you think that this is a Bitcoin is king run? A lot of people have made the argument that, well, guys like Michael Saylor and Jack Dorsey aren't buying Ethereum. Uh-oh. Testing, 1, 2, 3. And I think we are back. If you guys would just give me one moment here, I will attempt to get Tor back on. And we were towards the end anyway, so just a second. Hold on one moment here. Apologies for that, guys. All right. Sorry about that. That was super weird. Let's give me just a moment. Let's see if this is still up. And it does look like. Okay, cool. It's still live. Yeah, apologies, guys. I had my internet go down, which is super weird because I've got a dedicated fiber line. And that's literally the first time my internet's gone down ever since I ditched Charter Communications. Fuck them. Uh, Maybe a year ago. But we were building up in this kind of ultimate cliffhanger. And Tor, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, man, I can.
It's like Tor messaged me. He's like, bro, we can't leave everybody hanging like that. We were kind of gearing up in this ultimate cliffhanger. I tend to agree with Tor that we're at least going to see this one massive alt run. A lot of people are of the mind that this alt run doesn't start until, people can only base their opinion on what's about to happen based on what happened in 2017. So they think that the sequence of events is going to be kind of the same thing, which is Bitcoin makes an all-time high. That kicks off the news cycle. That news cycle brings retail in. Ethereum moves. Retail goes. Ethereum's cheaper than Bitcoin. Ethereum they buy Ethereum, and all of a sudden, the addiction has begun. As Tor said, I'm looking now at the top 10, now at the top 50, now at the top 250. What I was attempting to ask you is, do you see, especially considering that the transactional load is higher on Ethereum. A big thing for me is you've got this unidirectional bridge for Ethereum to the Ethereum 2 beacon chain, where a huge chunk of Ethereum is being locked up and staking. And a lot of people are doing things it would be interesting to see Secret do something with this. A lot of people are doing things to bring those staked assets back on chain to where they're in a tradable format. There's a couple of solutions that are on the way. I think Cream already has one live, if you guys have heard of Cream.finance. But do you see a future to where, because of everything is kind of being tokenized and listed on Ethereum, would you see, Ethereum flipping Bitcoin? Or is that just, like I said, it doesn't matter, but it's something, if you go on Twitter and you say something like that, people are going to get mad.
I did see a tweet today, which I thought was a way hotter take, which is that Ripple's going to flip Ethereum before Ethereum.
Oh my God. Can you imagine the butthurt?
That's what I'm saying. Like, those are the takes that I want to see, where it's like just really out of the box, because then it is like 2017, where it really has absolutely nothing to do with any of the narratives that people are already concentrating on.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, when you're talking about price, ultimately the thing that matters, because price is only observable on exchanges. So what matters is where the orders are actually being matched. If you're looking at CoinMarketCap and they're pulling from centralized exchanges, and the trading is on centralized exchanges, and the numbers are moving on centralized exchanges, like, that is where you're going to see number go up actually reflected. Like, if something creates an imbalance between supply and demand on the exchange. So right now we're seeing most likely a sell side liquidity crisis for Bitcoin. Bitcoins are being pulled off exchange, held in long-term corporate treasuries, or they're being wrapped and used in ETH DeFi. So there's just fewer Bitcoin to buy, or there's more demand for Bitcoin than Bitcoin being created. That creates an imbalance. And as it's been said on Twitter and elsewhere a few times, like, that can only make number go up, because price discovery has to occur at a higher price. There's just not enough inventory to go around. If ETH is going the same way because people are locking their ETH to go for the 2.0 transition or to participate in DeFi or whatever else, but people still want to interact with smart contracts on ETH, which cost gas, and sending Bitcoin still costs Bitcoin, and there's still demand for those assets, not just as like a safe haven store, but like because you want to utilize the technologies, then there will be demand and the number will go higher. And ETH has already gone higher. So I'm not saying it's going to go 20 times higher, but I'm saying we're already seeing that demand, like that crisis of supply and demand imbalance. You could see that in a lot of alts, just the ones that only have utility, have usage, because there needs to be demand for what the token actually does. If there's demand for what the token actually does, that demand can outweigh the supply of what's being created. So in proof of stake networks, for example, lots is staked. When these things are staked, it creates a scarcity for people who actually want to acquire it to stake it themselves. But there's also scarcity for people who want to acquire the coin to use the network. So if a lot of people are staking Secret and there's a lot of applications being used built on Secret, you need to have Secret to use those applications or to move your Secret tokens around, your Secret token of any kind. Like, you can see there being a real imbalance of scarcity. And then it just becomes a question of how much liquidity is there. If there's no liquidity, number goes up extremely quickly. There's actually a lot of liquidity for Ethereum and a lot of liquidity for Bitcoin. That's why alts go up 20 times before Ethereum can go up 20%, because there's just like the numbers move so much faster, just introducing a little bit of demand into a system with no supply. So when we talk about market caps flipping and we're talking about number one versus number two, where these are already like multi-billion-dollar numbers, let's not forget how hard it is to move something that's already that big, that much. You have to have that much imbalance between supply and demand on exchange. It has to be visible. Like forget all the OTC stuff where people are like trading at spot value all the time. But for an alt, right? You could see alts that have $5 million market caps be $500 million market caps in a matter of months. And that's what we saw in 2017. That's the part where I look back and I say history could repeat itself, because you could always see that imbalance emerge for any altcoin. In particular today, where you're seeing usage for these coins, demand is now coming from a new source, not just speculation, but from usage. And when you have new sources for demand and the same crisis of supply, then you can see something even more dramatic than we already witnessed. But that's not to say that like the risk and reward are going to balance. Like a Sharpe ratio of something like ETH could be better than the Sharpe ratio of any alt, could be even better than the Sharpe ratio of Bitcoin. But now we're getting into the part of the conversation where I'm just sounding like a nerd again, and I would never be on CNBC. So let's just say everything is risky, alts are cool. I don't think ETH is flipping Bitcoin anytime soon, but I do think it'll stay the dominant smart contract platform for a while, a long while.
And shit, what was I gonna say? I had something good to say. I can't. I can't quite remember it. Okay, here it is. We saw this little DeFi micro bubble, emerge, maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago. And in that micro bubble, we saw a lot of dog shit pump, and we saw a lot of good things pump. What we didn't see was what you just described, which is what I'm yearning for right now, is that it's a great project at a $5 million cap, and they're just at the right place at the right time, and they blow up to $500 million cap in the matter of a few months. We haven't seen that really anywhere yet. You've seen things go up, but even the last time, we saw $5 million cap projects go to $20 million cap, go to $30 million cap, and then come back down. In my opinion, we still have a long way to go. I think those are test pumps. I don't think these altcoins have pumped at all until we see a lot of coins do that. Anything in 2017 that was worth its salt, that was a good project that came out at a certain level, below $10 million market cap, went fucking nuts. It just did. We haven't seen that yet.
Just did.
So interesting.
We haven't. But again, now the market structures are different. There were no dexes. I mean, there were dexes, but there wasn't like dex.
There wasn't anything that was being used.
There was Ether Delta. So now there's like, competing dexes and vampire attacks and things like that. Like the incentive structures are so weird and so different now. Like if somebody launches a dex with a vampire liquidity attack and it's really effective, and that dex lists a different subsection of assets, or the liquidity pools on that dex happen to be more elevated, you really don't know. The only bet, because I'm not trading anymore, I just build, right? And I build one thing. I'm very boring. So the bet that we're making as a project, as an ecosystem, is that by providing a unique technology, a unique service, and doing something that's like a killer application that impacts every ecosystem that exists, on a narrative that we've believed in for years, where we've built a community for years, where we've already got like our network of validators and everything else. Like I can be comfortable betting on that ecosystem, knowing that if the time does come where this stuff is in demand, like we'll be top of mind. Like you kind of want to be leaning towards projects that seem like they're going to have total ownership over a particular use case or a particular narrative when that time comes. Right. It's not as fun to be speculating on like Link, but smaller. And now it's like you're always betting on some sort of Oracle solution to supplant Link's dominance in that category.
But bet on first movers.
You want to bet on first movers, and you want to be betting on solutions that are solutions to real problems, not solutions somebody made up and that sounded good on paper in 2017. The only way to know that something is a real solution is to see it implemented in practice. So it's fun to talk about like the $5 million alts that can go to 5 billion or whatever, but the reality is, unless they found something very, very specific to solve, that they were a first mover, that they understand better than anybody else, And chances are they've also had to have been around for a while. Like a lot of the stuff that went to the moon in 2017 or that went to the moon during the DeFi run were projects that had existed forever. Like Aave was ETHLend. They had been around since 2017 as well. Synthetics had been around since 2017, rebranded, went to the moon because they found those killer use cases. It was the right place, right time for exactly the thing that they built. But we weren't ready for an ETH lending platform in 2017. Once we were, that was it. We weren't ready for privacy solutions for DeFi or any other ecosystem in 2017 either, because the applications didn't exist. We were out there talking about how if you wanted any scalable application, you would need this to exist. There were no applications people wanted to use, so it didn't fucking matter. Here we are in 2020, every application still needs this. And now they're at scale, and now they're all confronting the problem at the same time, the same way everybody confronted the Oracle problem between 2018 and 2019. Like, we know what we're solving needs to be solved. And we know that we're solving it best, and we know that we're solving it first. But nobody else knows that until they really see it working in production. So at this point, all we care about is adoption. And it doesn't matter what market cap you start at. If you think you have a path to that clear level of adoption and usability, you could start at 1 million, you could start at 100 million, you could still go 10 or 100x from there if you've got that problem that you're solving. But I don't think we're going to see the thing anymore. I don't think it'll be any better than 2017, where it's like you've got a $5 million project, and just because there's a lot of speculative interest, it goes insane.
Right.
It goes to the moon.
It's got to be a $5 million cap project that is real, has real users, has a real working product.
Do you know why I think that? Because all the people who got rich off of the last like mini DeFi boom and everything else are the people who really believed in DeFi and usage. And now they're rich. It's everybody who got rich off of Link becoming like a top 5 coin, or people who got rich off of Synthetics and now they coming back from like Flatline to being some of the most important protocols in the world. There's a reason they did that. But the people who believed that they could do that are now the people who are deploying capital for this next wave of growth.
Right.
They're not going to be looking at like, pumping a new website. They're going to be looking at the same sort of stuff, solving new real problems that are going to impact every project that's coming out of the space. So I think that's what it comes down to. Where are you going to see the new demand from if there's restricted supply? If the demand is not yet coming from retail, but it's coming from the smart people in the room before retail discovers this long tail of altcoins, it's coming from those smart people. Look for the problems they still think need to be solved and chase that.
You're right. I mean, that's where they're going to put their money. 100%.
One would think. Cool. Did we wrap it up okay? I'm glad you guys
I think we wrapped it up okay. I know this went a lot longer than we originally talked about, but it was a really good banter and a good conversation. So, I hope we didn't keep you too long. And for anybody that missed anything, you'll be able to go back. A lot of shit we covered, from technology to economic theory to, hacks to, we talked about a ton of different stuff. So if you do want to go back, if you missed, the beginning or the middle or the end, you can go to my Twitter and just go straight to the Periscope. It'll let you rewatch it front to back, or you can wait a couple of days. Our technicians at Real Hero Labs are super professional. They're going to clean up this video, condense it, make it really, really nice. I'll post the link to that on YouTube when it's ready, and I'll also share it in the Secret Network channel on Telegram if you guys are there. If you're not there and you're interested in learning more about the project, Tor, what can people do to find out more about Secret, join the community, etc.? Where do you guys exist?
We have 3 main channels. One is the Twitter, so you can always see what's going on. That's just at Secret Network, very simple. If you want to join our communities, we have 2 main ones, Discord and Telegram. The Discord, you can get to if you go to chat.scrt.network. scrt.network is our homepage, so you can learn a lot more about the project there as well, or at blog.secret.network. And then the last community, as you mentioned, is our Telegram, which is a community-run Telegram at SCRT Community on Telegram. I'm in there a lot. I'm in the Discord a lot too. I'm on Twitter a lot too, I guess too. My personal Twitter is at Tor Bar. I have my own podcast. I kind of want to get you on it now. I feel like we kind of scratched the surface. So.
Let's do it, man. I'd love to come on.
Sounds like we got to run it back. My podcast is called Sharing Secrets. You can learn a little bit about that if you.
I can go and talk about dumping on everybody and stuff like that.
Exactly. Well, that's not a secret.
That's not a secret, but
you can come and talk about your latest rug pulls, and everybody will. You can do it live on air.
Yeah. We'll do a live rug on a project, and we'll see what happens.
to see what happens.
Yeah.
I like in the
Did you know there was actually a rug pull DAO in
really?
the it was kind of early in the DeFi bubble, and it's right when people started realizing that because early on it was super easy. I remember watching for those new contracts to pop up, those new projects, and it was very easy. I could go look at the smart contract. Is this cookie cutter token builder? Is there unique functionality built in the smart contract? If there was anything unique at all, it was a buy. Bam, 8 bin. And it literally was like that because you were going to get 2, 3, 4, 5x. But then the concept of the rug pull came along, and people started buying things, and all of a sudden the liquidity got pulled. They'd FOMO it up 5x, and the guy didn't even have to sell to take your money. He just takes the liquidity, and all of his dog shit has been converted to your Ethereum. Now there was a rug pull DAO, and what they did was everybody knew this project was a rug pull from the jump. People got to vote, and it was a kind of this game theory coin, which was a lot of fun. People got to vote on when the rug would be pulled.
Man.
Now you think, how is this going to go? But it actually turned out that the rug was pulled within 12 hours by vote, and the project was dead.
Oh man.
No, I mean it really sucked, but still, yeah, it was.
I love that
pretty
experimentation. I hope we see that level of experimentation with secret tokens because they have unique properties.
Yep.
The contract code of tokens is auditable on secret networks. You can see the code just like you can see the code of the contract on Ethereum. It's only the interactions that you can't see. So I think it does add that imperfect information element to things. So I'm really curious to see what kind of sandboxy type shit gets built on secret because
it'll be fun. Yeah.
On Ethereum, it's perfect information, but with secret, when each individual participant in the protocol or in one of these economic experiments, which is the best way to describe it, it does get pretty interesting. That's when my game theoretic brain starts to get
yeah, I mean there's all sorts of cool games. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool games that can be built.
Oh, stay tuned. Yeah, we're building.
It's going to be fun. Now, okay, one final question, and then I'll finally let you go because I was just curious. Let's say, I'm a guy, I don't have any secret, and maybe I don't, have the biggest wallet either. Is there any way for your community to get involved and earn secret by chance? Or there bounties for certain things to be done, etc.?
So this takes me back to our committee structure. If you're somebody who wants to get involved with Secret Network and do projects and things like that, we have community committees. So these are run by committee leads. Committee leads earn some secret sometimes, depending on the committee, for their work towards managing the committee. So we have an awareness committee, which is just how do people find out about secret. Our community committee runs that, helps with promoting content, getting things on Twitter, getting things on Reddit, things like that, just to make sure that people are seeing what's going on in our ecosystem. Education committee for people who want to create content like me, just teach people about privacy, teach people about secret, about blockchain in general. So all these community committees are constantly doing projects, constantly having proposals. And so if you're a secret agent, if you join the core of our community and become a secret agent, I love saying secret agent because that's what they are. They're agents for our protocol, and they have a lot of agency in our network because it's a governance token. You're literally governing and setting the direction of the protocol every time you're interacting with secret. So you can definitely get involved in the ecosystem, propose projects, get funded for projects at all shapes and sizes, whether it's something really small around content creation or design work, or whether it's something really big, you want funding to build a killer, we said, a killer secret app. Please do it. Please get in touch with us in one of our community channels, either the Discord or the Telegram. We have a whole network agency ready to receive you, ready to onboard you into the ecosystem and help connect you with some of those opportunities. That's what I would say the best way to do it is. Or just catch me on a good day. I don't know. DM me.
How many good days are there?
Very few. More now.
It's full disclosure.
Now yeah. Weirdly, I'm in a good mood lately. I don't know why, but I'll be in a better mood when I know that Secret is doing all the things that we say. So stay tuned for the launch of the ETH bridge on mainnet. I didn't drop a date. It'll be this year. I can't tell you how soon, but
soon.
Stay tuned.
TM.
Soon TM. Yes,
no.
I like to use the TM emoji in all of my communications. This is
coming
soon. TM, but it is on testnet already live, and you will hear more much sooner than you think.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming. Once again, apologize for that little hiccup. Tor, you've been a fantastic guest. I had an absolute blast. Is there any concluding thoughts you want to say, or are you ready to get out of here?
I'm gonna go eat something, or drink something, or both. But this was a blast. Thanks for having me. I now need to go watch all your back episodes because I'm sure they were like way cooler, but like also
No,
like
this was a
just
good
much
one. This
fun.
was this was a good. I man, I'd love to have you on here. You know, I know you said your
Yeah.
time was super divided. I'd love to have you on here just to talk about shit coins and you know, I mean,
Oh
you're an
yeah.
OG. You've seen a lot of shit, so it'd be good to hear some horror stories and you know stuff like that.
I've got those. We'll run it back, and as I said, the invitation's open. We'll get you to share some secrets and expose you to a
Let's
whole
do
new
it.
audience that I think deserves to know the real truth of how things work in this space.
Yeah, let's do it. And I'm definitely one that will tell the real truth. So, guys,
Excellent.
thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure having Tor on, and like I said, you can watch the replay on my Twitter. We'll have it on YouTube later. Until next time, we will see you guys later. Adios.
Adios. Cheers.